Morning, or good morning, good evening. I am drinking coffee. 5:03, welcome to the August Local Planning Committee meeting. We have a lot on our agenda, so thrilled for everyone to be here. Barbara, thank you for doing your job. We are so grateful for your continued service. I think you see everybody who's here. If we keep an eye out, if anybody comes virtually, then we just have to record our voting and our attendance slightly different to be compliant with all the things. First up on the agenda, we may need to blow through a little bit. We may have to kick the minutes from July into September, which I'm okay with just because Barbara had some things, wasn't able to do it. No problem at all. That's all good. The meeting is recorded. We are very public, so we'll do that.
Selectmen do that all the time.
Yeah. We can do that in August. It's all going to be okay, so thank you. And we can jump right into the first thing on the agenda, which is we are live with our pop-up visioning cards. Very exciting. Thank you, Sharon, for all your help with that and all. Just kind of for full disclosure, so everyone knows what's going on and how we're doing this. This is just a which I'm sharing on the screen. Is there a way to make it bigger?
Yeah, 1 second.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your help. This is a real simple Google form that I'm hosting, and I'm okay with that. Not a ton that can go wrong, but no one's going to get hurt. And for the actual survey, Sharon and the town, we had a great meeting with Joe Powers earlier in the week, Sharon, Karen, and I, and we'll loop back to that. But the town will purchase a survey instrument, just so it's a little more.
Great.
Yeah, but for now, we're Google forming it, and I think that's okay. If we want to distribute the cards, if anybody wants to take some, I will take a few. People can definitely jot, but the QR code is live. I'll pass them both ways. Take as many as you need.
This is to give to neighbors?
Anybody you want. I would say far and wide. Anybody. I'm going to try to get everybody.
How many have we got in so far?
So we have 19 with very little. It was a soft opening. I wanted to kind of make sure it all worked and everything. So making sure that you're all filling it out. You can send it to everyone.
Where's the box at Town Hall?
Well, you're ahead of me, David.
Sorry.
Would someone like to make the box? I was hoping that would be our artist Bernadette who would volunteer. That's what I was hoping.
It's not a commission, maybe. Yeah, because I said I had just gone through this with the
That would be
MCCA.
lovely if you could, thank you.
Going to the library board tomorrow night, I'll hand it
Awesome, and I would encourage digital. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with the card, but but it can be digital too.
I've been thinking to say to people, is that just what
Yeah. But this is like a nice thing, A little bit of a distinction. It's nice to have all kinds of things, and I don't think it's a huge thing. On the card, it got printed, and this was my eyeballs, Sharon. Full-time, part-time, seasonal work in Harwich, which is fine. Online, I put full-time, part-time work in Harwich and visitor to Harwich.
That's better.
I think so. Yeah, I would agree, because I don't, part-time and seasonal is kind of a little bit splitting hairs, but that's fine. We corrected it online, so. I don't,
And if you do it digitally, you can go on and on.
you can. And you can do it
So-
7 times if you'd like, yes.
These
So
will
on the
be different.
digital version, it has the visitor to Harwich?
Yes, so it's on it's hard to see. I don't
Yeah.
know if we kill our overhead lights or anything.
Yeah,
it says
that's good, that way.
Full-time, part-time, visitor, and work in Harwich.
So if you give one of these and they want to fill it out, you can tell them, if you're a visitor, you just write that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, right, it's all good, I think. To the agenda, just to kind of roll down what we've heard, so what we're asking are these 3 questions. What do you love most about Harwich? What are your biggest concerns about Harwich? Is there anything you'd like to tell us? We've gotten 19 responses. I know we can't see it super well. I don't know if anyone, I can read it out loud, or we can turn the lights off. 84% are full-time residents, 15% are saying they're part-time residents. Does that help anybody?
Yes.
All right, nice. What do you love most about Harwich? Just kind of the highlights, the community, somebody being a wise, little bit naughty, 9 months of the year. I don't know what that means, but sure. Natural and beautiful, woods, abundance of natural beauty, strong year-round community, beaches, sense of community over and over again, small town feel, woods and ocean. So the kind of thematically what we've gotten so far with 19 responses is both the humans and the nature. Community again, we can actually do, when we do this, we can do like a cloud thing that, hits the words and it shows you based on, that's kind of a fun visual when we get to that part, when we're analyzing this stuff, this qualitative data. What are our biggest concerns? More development, lot of discussion here about business, environmental degradation, overcrowding, lack of affordable housing, housing for workforce, affordable housing, again, housing, a little bit of town leadership stuff there coming up, proper balance between appropriately planned development and keeping the small town charm.
This is all from the 19 people.
These are from 19 people. This is going to be a super useful tool. And this is just like me dipping my little toe in and making sure that like the old timers group didn't yell at me online, but they didn't. So we can do a lot with this. I mean, look at all this text. This is amazing.
Quick question, Joyce?
Yes.
Are the ones we've received so
Yes,
far have all
yes.
come in electronically?
Correct. We just got the card tonight.
Okay,
Yes.
and so how did they get the,
So, we have the QR code. I've distributed a little bit in West Harwich, but primarily
okay.
on social media. So primarily on the Harwich Facebook group.
I sent it to my neighborhood.
Nice, Ed.
Well-
Nice.
Well, I figured when you sent it to
Yes,
us, it
please.
was open season.
Please, we should. So that, that is why this is
I
on the
did a-
agenda. You should fill it out. You should distribute to everyone you know.
I blind carbon copied to
Yes.
my whole neighborhood.
Awesome.
And I said that we're interested in your input.
That's what we should do.
So could you send an email and have a copy of this on there?
Yes. No, so in your email, Jim, and we can go through this after a little bit, I included the QR code, so you could forward that. You could also, it's also, you can text both the link or the QR code.
it's, right, this was hiding on me where the agenda was, because that was what was showing up next. She sent it right after that.
So there's a shortened little link that you could text to everyone you know.
I have the 30 names.
Nice. And there's also a little QR code that you can send to anybody you know.
Have access to this, to the code.
We have
I hear a question from Barbara.
Yeah, so I'm saying for the visitors.
Yes.
They don't have access to this code yet.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's just a.
It just takes them to the URL page here.
No. Without the card.
Yes.
They don't have access. So what we have done internally here is sent them to
Residents.
friends, residents, neighborhoods, et cetera. So if I'm walking down the street to the Wednesday night stroll tomorrow night, if I sit there and I hand these cards out, they
Yes.
can do it. But
Correct.
there's no other way so far that they have really
Correct.
gotten this.
Correct. We have not
Unless
distributed
we-
this. We have not dropped these from the airplanes at the beach.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
But
But
when Brian sends something out, it allows them to do the same.
yes, everyone can share. It's
How many
People,
do we have right now?
only 19, but this
No,
is
I
still
mean, how many
pretty.
cards do we have?
Oh, Sharon, I don't know how many.
Well, I gave you 50, and then there were 50 that were a little oopsed. They had
That's
like
okay.
a little.
They're just,
Little cutting
the
boards.
OCD among us, it's not quite straight,
Yes.
but that's
If I
okay.
could take a stack down, give them to Cindy, and they'd be in the visitor center.
Please.
at
Please.
the Chamber of
And
Commerce.
if you're writing an email to your friends,
Yes.
is it worth saying, hey, and feel free to send this to
Yes,
other
you can.
people?
Yes, and to pick up Bernadette's point, would you please bring it to the Chamber of
Yeah,
Commerce?
if you have enough to
Yeah.
spare. Because I took some for the 204 and for my meeting tomorrow night.
Yes.
and
Yes.
I'll take
Yeah,
these
take some
down
more.
there.
Do you mind, just Garrett, while I'm
Split 'em
thinking about it,
between
could
here
you put
There in the community
this
center.
in that
But
link
that'll
I
get
sent for the
visitor
Google
stuff.
Doc that we're doing?
I'm gonna sit in front of the house tomorrow night, like they walk down the sidewalk.
You need more?
So, and just for the minutes, Garrett's gonna put in our, I know it all is going back to the Google Drive right now, that doc that I sent that we're making a record of this outreach. So that will be helpful for Sharon and as
So
we.
just to follow up on that. You want us to send to that doc, right? Whenever
Yes.
we contact.
Yes,
I just want to make sure
yes,
everybody.
yeah,
knows.
or if you like,
Clear.
So,
I've already done it for one. but-
thank you, but for clarification and discussion, like, Margot went to the selectmen
Right.
thing, which we would love an update on, I'll circle back to, but if you think of it, just jot that down in the
You know,
doc that you went.
Maybe I couldn't do it on my iPad, but I tried it today and I didn't, nothing popped up to allow me to type. So I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I could read what the entries were, but I
Okay.
couldn't edit it.
It may, do you have any thoughts about that on an iPad? It may be an iPad thing.
It could be. It could be.
He doesn't want to say it's operator error.
No, for sure there are little tricks of this, but anybody who has that link should be able to edit it, so it might be, you might find it easier on a laptop
You
or a
mean the
desktop.
actual spreadsheet itself?
It's not a spreadsheet, it's just a doc.
It's just
Oh,
a
not
doc.
this thing then.
Yeah.
Sorry, not this thing.
No.
Okay.
If you're in the drive, it just says outreach, it's in the main landing page of the
Okay.
outpage, yes. Ed, yes.
So, how many total cards do we have?
You
It's
have
the
100 right now. So you have 50 that don't have any little marks on them. There are little tick marks, and 50 that have them. They're very easy to make more of, you know, like if even somebody at town hall, like they're just hard card stock.
Yeah.
So we've got them 4 on a page. That's why you've got some head guidelines. Somebody just misunderstood. They're 4 on a page, front to back. Somebody can print them on cardstock. So if you need more, they can be, you know, easily printed again, very, very cheaply.
Okay, because it would, putting a stack of them at the visitor center is a nice idea, but if we could also have something that could have the QR code and explain that they can do it online also, you
You
know.
mean just like like a larger signage
That's
with
the
the
same.
Yeah,
QR?
like a larger
Same
sign.
purpose of putting them there. I figured most people are just gonna take out their phone and do it that way. They're not gonna, you know, I wasn't gonna make 4
Let's
boxes
see.
like I
Yeah,
did.
let's,
Be all
I
right.
think, you know, we could
You know.
distribute.
Yeah,
Yep.
Far and wide. It's
What-
free, it's cheap, we're getting people to respond.
yeah, well,
What about,
on the one hand, it's cheap, because at least don't cost, but on the human power, somebody who's gonna have to input all this, you know, if you get 500 of them, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I think most of it is gonna be digital, which makes, I mean, if we got 100 of these cards, I would kind of be surprised. I think it's gonna mostly be on this form.
When I did it for the cultural
Have you tried
council,
this?
we had like 100 hard copies, and
It takes us to the LCP page. I thought it was gonna take you to the,
That's the website. The link should take you, well, let's check. The link should take,
it takes you to,
uh-oh, the link should take you to the survey.
it doesn't.
No,
It
the
takes you to
QR
the
code takes
master
you to
plan.
the survey.
No, the
link takes you
QR,
to the page.
the QR code takes you to the survey.
Yeah. The link is
Oh.
intended to take you to the
Oh,
planning
he-
page, so for more
uh-oh.
Takes you to the
information.
master plan.
Oh,
Changed.
that's,
That was
Nope.
definitely working like last time I tried.
it is now currently taking us to the webpage.
That's weird.
Yeah, we had to, we
Grandma's
checked
in
it
the-
this week, and it had changed, you know, it had changed, so it
technology
should,
guy.
that was my instructions, was to, for more information, go to the webpage. The QR code takes you to the survey.
The QR code right now is taking us to the webpage.
So this needs to be redone.
No, they have to change, they can change it on the back end.
I see.
It did work.
Complete plan.
I don't understand that.
Thank you, Ed, for
So,
checking. It did work.
On the record of the visioning process, 3 of us have gotten in, so I don't know if it's just,
I've gotten in.
yeah.
It's a simple,
Well, been
the
ab-
code
been able
doesn't
to
have to change, they just have to change
No,
what
two
it
different
links to.
things. I'm back to your
Those
list of
parts.
the recording of the visioning process. I think that's the one you couldn't get into.
yeah, but our website is so awful.
You're talking about
It's
this
too bad
document.
the QRC code
Yeah.
isn't taking you right to the
So,
survey.
It should,
At least 3
it
of us
will.
have been able
I-
to.
It did this morning. Sharon will fix it.
Did this morning? Well,
Yes.
it did when
But
we tested it,
Talking
it
two
did.
different things.
Correct.
It did.
Sharon will fix it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I don't know how I fix it, or if those are all wrong.
No, so whoever is doing this for you
Yeah,
just has to change which the QR takes to the webpage.
oh, okay.
It's just, you could take it,
Okay,
It's a back end.
you could take it to the New York Times if you wanted to. But you just need to, they are not understanding where to bring it to.
okay.
It needs to go to the
I'll have
survey.
that fixed by tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
I promise you.
It's gonna be great. Thank you, Ed, for checking.
Apologies.
Brian, I'm sorry. Thank you
bad.
for checking. Thank you, both of you, Brian. Okay. Let's, anything more about that? Anyone need to understand more about it?
Do we want to hold off handing these out till it's
No.
fixed?
It'll be fixed, right?
It's gonna be fixed tomorrow.
Okay.
It'll be fixed tomorrow morning.
Unless you're gonna run into 50 people tonight.
Yeah, tomorrow is okay.
Going to the Mariners game.
All right, so pop-up visioning cards, live web link, review data collected, finalized plan for distribution. Okay, and just in here, I mean, I think what we really want to do is just make sure you're really sending it to everyone, because for sure there's a little sample bias here. You know, Margot was, so we really appreciate, Margot kind of jumped in. There was a little pop-up discussion on the old timers group about development in East Harwich, and she very savvily said, oh, hey, by the way, we're doing this local planning committee, which I appreciated. And then I then responded and sent the QR code to this, and, you know, so we have a little sample bias about people that feel strongly about that. So we just sent it to everybody, which is fine, you know, their opinion. Cool, so that's happening. And sort of related to all that, so the committee is aware, Sharon and I had a really good meeting with Joe last week, as well as Karen. Joe very sort of thoughtfully articulated our understanding of trust versus us and the housing production plan and Karen's efforts. So I think Karen was reassured about that. Sharon, would you agree? Yep.
Yes, as we clarified roles between the Housing Trust.
Yep.
And the Housing Production Plan.
Yep.
And, it seemed very, Joe was very clear about the sort of difference between the two and the roles. And her, she's to go ahead as proposed in her scope. So, she had said she would revise her scope if needed. There doesn't appear to be any need to do that.
Great.
So we're just waiting for contact info that Joe promised us. as
Right, he
town
did.
staff.
You
Yeah.
could probably pester him
I
about
will.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
The working understanding, just so the committee is aware, and not any different than we understood, but just to repeat, that the housing production plan is sort of our responsibility, the consultant, and of course in collaboration with the trust, but the consultant for the trust is specifically with their funds, the trust action around affordable housing. So those are complementary things, but not exclusionary or in conflict. Also, our next, so Joe was really articulated this committee and the comprehensive plan is really a priority in terms of his work. He did say that the planner position was posted, such that a priority enough for him, such that in September, I think we're going to have a small bit of time at the selectmen's meeting, the first meeting of the month in September, which will actually be our meeting too. So we'll have to one of us will have to step away to make that, but so that's on the 5th of September. Sharon's going to introduce herself to the Board of Selectmen, and I actually will probably share a little bit of, we'll remind them who we are, what we're doing, and actually share some of this data from the pop-up card. My sense was that as we're collecting this information, we'd be sharing this kind of in real time, because their work is going on, the zoning discussions, planning board, all this kind of stuff. There's not, the plan will be a final thing, but we can share what we're gathering in real time, which I think would be wise. There's that. I think that's item B on the agenda. Any more discussion about the visioning cards, where we're at with all that? Yes, Barbara.
And I may have slept through this part, but the finalizing the plan for distribution, at one point we had talked about, hitting different areas, different meetings, sitting at Sackatucket, things like that, are we just doing this on our own, or is there effort, or is there, or are we set up for something specifically, people signing up for anything, or are we just?
You know, I think at this point, let's just do it in the next month, and then we can kind of revisit this in September and see where, maybe where we're missing. We know who our stakeholders are, right? Let's kind of see what we're getting and what we're not getting, and
So if people make a special effort to hit one committee or association or club, if you log that in.
Exactly.
Docs, so we can keep our
exactly,
record.
Ed, you're on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, we'll be able to
Then we can
see
look
kind
at
of
it
what we're
and say,
missing.
Oh,
Yes,
there isn't a fisherman group
yes.
among it. Or
Yes, see who,
there isn't,
see
you
see
know.
who we're
Right,
missing.
but- Okay, so
Yeah.
what I'm saying, okay, so Brian's going to the Mariners game tonight after
Yes.
this, right? So, is he gonna hand some of these out?
Well, not with the link not live, but yeah.
Well, I'm just saying this,
Tell
so,
them not to clerk until tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I think I hear what you're saying. Do we need to organize ourselves so that we have a list of places that we're trying to hit and do we organize?
I think we've got obviously the list of stakeholders, and we've got our subject matter experts of those lists, and that's on here. So if you want to start taking initiative in doing that, I think it's fine, but we're going to build probably a more comprehensive survey for these particular stakeholders. So I think it's just, the more the merrier, it would be my input.
I would agree, I would agree. I think this is gonna guide further. Go ahead.
I think if I recall, when we first came up with this, we said this was just gonna be kind of a quick,
Yes,
casual thing
correct.
to try to capture
Correct.
some of the summer visitors, particularly before they would drift away, and we were under the, so we weren't looking
Correct.
to do something really
Correct.
super
And
organized.
I think we're gonna
structured, and
come
then
back,
we
we're gonna come back to this in point D on the agenda.
Yeah.
About finalizing outreach, and because there was some effort amongst Joe, Sharon, and I about some formal dates in the fall for these more formal processes. So I think we're on the right track here.
Who said they were going to the stroll? That's a good idea.
I'm gonna sit out in front of my house and
I
walk
was,
down the
I was
sidewalk.
thinking the same
Nice.
thing. I was going to sit in front of Perks,
That's great.
you know, hang out,
Awesome.
hang out.
Awesome.
I can hand some out in Thompson's Field.
Love it.
Thank you. That'd be great.
That's not exclusively Harwich people, but,
Yeah.
No, but that's okay.
yeah.
They,
Don't
Oh.
go fast.
they work here.
Yeah.
Like the 204, not everybody
It's great.
over there lives here, but they work here, and
Yeah.
and if they're not inclined, if they don't live here, they won't hopefully skew it.
But conceivably, if they fill it out, they'll come up as visitors if they don't live here.
Yeah.
Right.
Question, I mean, should we have a booth at the Cranberry Festival?
Talk to the guy who runs it.
I know,
Yeah,
I'm sort of
well.
leaning that way.
Yeah, you know, we could, yeah.
Can we come back to that in Agenda D? The
Sure.
D. The agenda. All right, trucking along here. In C, trying to bang out the easy stuff first. There,
I'm already going, so
would you like to be the rep?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. So there is a kind of spontaneous grassroots on Saturday, August 19th. They're titled the East Harwich Development Meeting, happening at the community center. I have not seen, I did see a time, 9 a.m.?
I think so, yeah.
Saturday morning, the 19th. All are welcome.
I live there, so I'd like to attend.
Please, go. Bring your QR
We're
code.
going anyway.
Yes. Yes, all right, so we've, so for the record, Barbara, both Bernadette and Brian are gonna be the rep from the LPC to the East Harwich Development Meeting on August 19th.
And I think
At
you
9?
you all ought to go in with the expectation that they're gonna want you to say something about this process.
What I was gonna say is, I'm just gonna identify myself and basically say that they're helping us with the exact kind of work that we're doing. And report back what is said there, rather than get into anything with anybody. But
Correct.
It's listening.
You said it was the East Harwich Development Community
They're
meeting?
calling the East Harwich Development Meeting.
Okay.
And that's at the community center?
Mm-hmm. On Saturday, August 19th. Note,
Community center, right?
correct.
So, here's a question. There's 11 of us on this committee?
10.
10.
10.
10 right now.
10 right now, so 6 would be a quorum, so if, on Saturday, if 6 of us show up, and somebody asks you a question, the obvious answer is, we're here just to listen, not to say anything.
Or post it if you want to cover us.
Yeah.
But I think you need to be prepared to
Yeah.
talk about what this process is and what the purpose of it is. Because a lot of people in that room don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Ray Gottwald contacted me.
Who I've been trying to get in touch with, but
yeah,
I will
and
connect with him.
Asked me to come. I can't be there, I'm gonna be away that week. But somebody needs to be prepared to say, this is what the local comprehensive plan is. You know, this is what we're doing to get started on it. Here are the steps in the process. That they want to know that.
I will have connected with Ray before that too, but it's a really point well taken, is that this
Yeah.
is like a public event.
Yeah.
If we have a formal mission statement, a document that we could hand out, it would be consistent with every group that we meet with.
I think we should, yeah.
Is that something Sharon could help us with?
I could.
Yeah,
It would be worded the same way. We'd open up every session with it.
yeah,
We could use it for the first time with this group on
yeah.
that.
And there's, you know, if we go back, it's been a while since I looked at this, but there was a charge that the selectmen put together when they
Yes,
appointed the
yes,
committee.
yes.
So that would
yes.
be a
Yes.
starting place.
Yes.
I might
Yes.
have
for that.
I don't think it has to be very well, lengthy, but it's
It's
just,
an elevator pitch.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
yeah.
Good idea.
If I actually I put some of that wording in my brief little post on the Old Timers group too. You know, every 10-year plan,
Right.
yeah. It's actually at the top of this survey. If you go to questions, town is currently updating the local comprehensive plan, which sets the vision, goals, and policies for the future of Harwich. You know, obviously, we have a little more information than that, but
Probably a couple of more sentences.
Yes,
You're
yes.
every 10 years.
yes, yes, yes. Okay. Related to that, Margot, since you went to the Selectmen Roundtable, would you give us a little update?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Ed and I both went to the
thank you.
meeting, but I got there first, which meant that they had decided that they wanted to have one representative from this committee, one from the planning board, and one from the zoning board of appeals. And so Ed wasn't allowed to talk. So, they went into it with an agenda of some specific zoning changes that and it was very much focused on trying to increase housing opportunities in town. And so the things.
So that was the focus, it wasn't just like,
That was the focus of it,
okay, it wasn't
yeah.
just like, okay.
And so I'll just tick through them for you. The number one was converting single-family dwellings to 3-unit houses, and I'll explain that in a minute. Apartments over commercial buildings, looking at the veiled deed restriction model, Airbnb restrictions in commercial zoning, and any other items related to zoning. And the Board of Appeals chairman had some specifics on that. They didn't reach any conclusions about any of these ideas. They were just kind of kicking them around and talking about pros and cons. And I think that the point that I was trying to stress to them was that planning is supposed to drive zoning rather than zoning driving planning. And that it's not to say that they shouldn't entertain any zoning amendments before we do the plan, but that they really ought to be using this process to shape what changes they want to see in zoning, rather than just kind of piecemeal going in and changing this provision or that provision in the zoning bylaw. And the more we talked, the more obvious it became that the bylaw itself has internal inconsistencies, and there's some stuff like that that could be cleaned up in the short term. But the bigger picture of what the town wants to be and how the regulations might need to be changed really needs to come out of this process.
That's why it's called comprehensive.
No, and thank you for that. And that was kind of my sense of why we want to share what we're gathering in real time to a point. I mean, you know, in a polished format, but we are the ones that are, you know, the resources from the town to sort of go. It's not like the Board of Appeals is going out and doing this kind of, I mean, this is exactly what you're saying. This is
Yeah.
our charge, but if they're also working at the same time, we don't want to keep that from them.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you know, the ZBA deals regularly with, you know, variance and special permit applications. And so they see the, you know, what's the effect of an existing bylaw provision. And for example, this thing about converting single-family homes to three-unit homes, there's apparently a glitch in the bylaw that allows for you to do a change from single-family to three-family, but not to a duplex.
Oh, interesting.
And that, I think somebody just wasn't thinking when that,
I've never seen that.
when that change was made. So,
I've never seen that.
well, I hadn't either, and I was kind of surprised when I heard it, but I guess the ZBA has seen some,
Some trivia. That's some
yeah,
zoning trivia. Okay.
so there are things like that that maybe need to be tweaked. But thinking about, what I tried to stress to them was thinking about not just, do you want to do housing, but, you know, what kind of housing and where is it appropriate, and where are there services available to support it, and where are high densities a good idea, and where are high densities not a good idea, and, you know, thinking about all the sort of the bigger picture of how all the pieces fit together. So.
Did you get any response to that?
I think the chairman of the planning board was very supportive of that approach.
Of course.
And I had the impression that the selectmen just want to do something.
Yes.
You know, they feel like they need to do something.
Okay.
And so, but sort of scattershot doing something sometimes can add up to a bigger mess.
Yeah, sure can.
So.
Thank you for representing us so well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I was happy to be there, and I'm, you know, happy to do it again. I think this is not going to be their last discussion of this. They might have been thinking that they want something as imminent as putting it on a special town meeting in the fall. I seriously doubt they're going to be ready to do that, so, yeah.
So, as a person who.
Yes,
Just
it's
as
great to have another set of ears. Tell us.
Just as a member of the audience listening, you know, I came in late, so I missed the whole discussion about only having one group, and so I went to sit up at the table and was scolded by the chair. Which was sort of interesting, but anyway, she has apologized to me and explained what they had previously decided, but anyway, I thought
Committee anymore.
the position that Margot was expressing and the chair of the planning board were very, you know, consistent with what we're all about, and it's clear that the selectmen really just want to do something.
Yeah, they feel a political
Yeah.
mandate to,
And,
yes.
And to even more emphasize that, since then, I ran into one of the other members of the board and apologizing also that I wasn't allowed to speak. And I said, instead of you, we wound up with a member of your committee who doesn't seem to know anything about housing. You know, so, it's clear, they are sort of tunnel visioned into that, you know.
It's interesting, just recognizing politics, you might have said the same thing, but been perceived differently as someone, quote, who knows something about housing. Just knowing as we,
Yeah.
I mean, you know a lot about housing.
Yeah.
Interesting, just as we try to be effective in the community, recognizing how we're perceived,
Yeah,
interesting.
I know, it's weird.
You might have said exactly the same thing and been perceived differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good to know as we go out. Thank you. Any other updates or?
No.
It had been on my list of things to do is I'm gonna share in real time, cause there's a way to share the link, with the chair of, the planning board, this pop-up data, so he can see that in real time, what's coming in. No need to be secret, we can share, so. Okay, thank you. Should we then go on to D? So just so we know what we're doing in what order, D and E here. I think D is we want to, both because Sharon's contract includes some specific public events, we wanted to start to finalize some of the dates about that, and Joe was also very encouraging about us that, to the point of this context that we're all working in, I think getting us out fairly quickly in September. So finalizing sort of the formal events on the calendar is Agenda D, and that would be picking up where you were talking about like a booth at the Cranberry Festival. Now would be the time to maybe scattershot all that out, ideas, and I would start with Sharon. I think you were talking about 2 events?
I believe that our scope has 2 events at the visioning stage and 2 events at the goals, like goals and objectives. I mean, so there's quite a bit of room there for lots of things. But it's just, kind of starting with the chunk of visioning. And if you feel like you only need 1 or,
Well,
something like that, that's fine too.
I'm gonna really open it up to the committee. What kind of, as we're collecting this pop-up data and as we're out there doing it now, going to selectmen, what is open for discussion? What's the sense of, do we want to have an open meeting at the community center? Do we want to be a little more focused? I mean, we can definitely do a booth at the Harwich Cranberry Festival, but what's?
Could I add one more thing too? Also, we had suggested, or a proposal included, that the visioning events potentially could be combined, since we're doing the open space plan and the housing plan also, that Karen's scope includes some visioning as well. So we could also pursue something along the lines of one that's very general, or breakout rooms or breakout groups on specific topics. So that's another way to do it, just because we're doing, we're covering 3 plans at once. We might be able to have some, a longer event perhaps, some that's, some part of it that is focused on overall vision, and then some breakout rooms or groups focused on some key topics.
Go ahead.
So, just so we sort of need to know where we're going, you have 2 visioning events for the local plan, and 2 goals and, did you say goals and objectives? And then is there a final draft hearing?
Yes.
So there's 5 meetings altogether. I wasn't exactly sure how the contract was put together when the other 2 plans got included. Were there separate meetings for those, and does the state require there to be separate meetings?
There are some separate meetings, so there are some that are specifically dedicated to discussion of open space, the open space plan update, and there'll be some that'll be specific to the housing plan. But at the same time, we also propose that because we're doing all 3, there's the opportunity to combine, at least, I think we had proposed later in the fall, so just if you're thinking ahead, and I
Yeah.
think Joe Powers agreed that later in the fall would be when we'd, be ready, or everybody would be ready to have these workshops. So it can be, some will be separate and some will be together.
I don't think it's a bad idea to sort of, to maximize the productivity as well as maximize the yield, as sort of set the session with a topic that we're
Sure. Yeah.
interested in.
But, past history tells me that if there's
You muddy it too
something
much.
that the state requires, and
Yes.
you call it something else, and
Get
you
in trouble.
present your plan, they say, no, you didn't do this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
No,
apologize,
appreciate
I
that.
Yeah.
apologize, I didn't really answer the second part of your question. So does the state require a separate visioning workshop? No, not technically.
Okay.
But it does require the open space plan to have an overall vision and open space goals. So that's where, there could be some initial outreach with, everyone involved, and then with stakeholders that are specifically interested in open space issues,
Okay.
there could be further detail, like
Alright.
a more focused workshop for those stakeholders.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But if you did, what you were saying though is if you got like a master event together and you brought in all the stakeholders and you basically, hey, here's the ultimate goal and the vision and the plan, here's the story, and then why don't you break off into the things you're really interested in and kind of ideate from that?
You can, you can capitalize on people being there.
Yeah.
It does require, more planning and more time. So
Sure.
it's really kind of a question of, do you, again, want to combine those events? I've done it both ways. I've done it where it's just focused on
Cool.
creating community vision and, vision and values, we've called it, engaging community values. Kept it pretty high level. That probably would be good for maybe your first one.
Yep.
Maybe we could have a follow-up that might be a little more targeted.
Could-
But, yeah, happy to work with you. on
I'm
whatever
kind
you
of
want.
trying to wrap my brain on just his date, location. I'm trying to get there. Dave and Margot maybe participated in these kind of things before professionally. Or anybody in the committee, what is kind of a high engagement format? If I'm trying to just strategize in my own mind, do you do it Saturday morning at the community center when rec basketball has started, and there's a lot of people coming in and out of there? I'm just throwing that out. Or there may be a very different way of doing it. Where have you seen this work well?
Well, there's a lot of difference. My initial thought is we work on this scattershot approach to get the word out to as many people as possible with these cards, with the online and so forth. And we point towards a specific event, make sure it's well advertised, hold it at the community center.
Okay.
As for Saturday versus weekday, I'd leave that to others. I don't know about that. I think you need
I'm
to-
always, I work weeknights. I just think it's really hard for the employed.
Saturday works.
Yeah. I think a Saturday usually gives you a bigger block of time, and people are a little fresher
Yep.
when they come than,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
after.
Hopefully fresher, not hungover.
Depends. We want them to come too. so.
The community center,
Always
the
helpful.
community center is a good
Yeah,
location.
food is
Okay, so we're building some consensus here. Community center, a Saturday. I just want to finish the thought, and I'll come back to, when we had first started this, Margot, almost maybe 10 months ago, you had talked about, there was a funny word that I laughed at that was,
charrette.
yes, thank you. Can you tell us more about charrette?
Nailed it.
Nice, Margot.
Margot's showing her stripes.
Tell us about a charrette.
Well, a charrette is just a fancy word for a workshop that's actually hands-on. That, you're giving people something active to do. You're not talking at them. You're getting them to work in groups and brainstorm things, and you have sticky notes that you can put up all over the walls and that kind of thing. The term comes, it's an old architectural term that comes out of France, actually, that they say en charrette is, they're actually working on the plans right down to the last minute, and they jump onto the charrette, which is the cart, the rolling cart that hauls the plans away. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, yes, David, and then Brian.
A little.
Do you want to go first? So my question on would be, would you hold it at the first one or a subsequent one, a charrette?
A charrette.
And let me just amplify just a little. What I like is if you're doing the visioning, that you try to identify all these topics, and then you figure out some sort of weighting. You know, everybody's given these different color stickers, and you put what's really important and what's medium important, and then, you know, that gets people involved. It's not really a charrette.
Right.
We're also
but
going to
you're-
have asked some of those weighted, at least topics before.
Okay, I guess what I'm suggesting is, if you're gonna have a big community meeting, you have sort of a first step, get all the ideas out, and a second step, start to hone in a little bit.
Yeah.
The way I see charrettes is a little more of a visual thing. You know, you're gonna do this kind of development in this location. To me, that's a second or subsequent meeting.
Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, Sharon's been doing this with other communities, and so, I mean, you should speak to this.
Well, I mean, thank you for providing the definition of charrette, because, you know, I use the term a lot, too. Yeah, so definitely, you know, something that's visual, hands-on. You know, one of the charges, or one of your charges under this process is to think about the place types in the regional policy plan. So one way you can do that is through a visioning workshop, and we provide some boards that stimulate people's thinking about some of the centers that we can identify, or collectively the committee can identify, and then you want to get feedback from the public on those and how they could be improved. And you've done a lot of work in the past in the towns. There's a lot of other plans and studies to go from to do that kind of activity. So that could be part of this charrette or visioning. Could be something that is, yes, the first part is maybe sticky notes on the wall, and you get kind of really big picture ideas, and then you break into some tables, and we have maps, and we have posters and things for people to mark up and make comments on, and that's more of a place-oriented kind of visioning. So you're kind of getting at that place type aspect.
I guess,
If that makes
thank you
sense.
for the charrette term, 'cause I've used that technique, but I never knew what it was called.
Never mind the historical francophile
wonderful.
context.
So that was-
Spectacular.
That was great learning. I'm wondering if the visioning needs to happen once we've got some of the
Yes.
survey
Yes,
results.
yeah.
And that's one thought. But the other is, should we be going out to our constituent communities while the survey is out? Because I think we need to stoke the community. And can we be working with the constituent in more of an interactive, to get them fired up, to do more one-on-one with the community? I think we signed up with the small business owners,
Yep.
whether it's a workshop with the Chamber of Commerce. Should we be doing some of those things in September and October while the survey is out, so that we're getting more attitudinal insight, so that we can couple that with what we hear from the survey, and then use those two things together as our big themes to
Yes.
drive
Yes.
what you're talking about. with
I think so, and I think now that we have the pop-up card in hand, and then, you know, our next item on the agenda is this much bigger survey and the specifics of that. My sense is we're kind of zeroing in on here, okay, a Saturday, the community center, but we don't have a sense of the format yet, because, I mean, we know the topics, but I'm almost kind of going into this with a little bit of you have to go into this with a little bit of a thesis, right?
Yes.
Or a focus, and I kind of tangentially get the sense of, like, well, then do you have an open space breakout room? I mean, you know, a little bit of, I think we're accomplishing something here. A Saturday, kind community center. Just knowing the timing, are we talking, we probably want to be well before Christmas, so like November 1st, November 15th? Is that some wisdom? Yeah.
And I would suggest that a week or two before the event, that we have a sit-down with somebody from the Chronicle to have them do a feature piece
Yes.
on that this meeting is going to be happening, and talk about what the topics are and all of that, because lots of people read the Chronicle.
They've actually been invited to our meetings, so I've invited them and stuff, so if anybody else wants to drum up that well,
Well,
I've reached out as well, so.
I could talk to somebody there when we're,
Yeah,
when we're
yeah.
ready to do it, because I think having a piece ahead of time in the paper will get people interested in coming, and then they'll probably come and cover part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
And some of the things that we could drop with the Chronicle to sort of, I love the term chum the waters, is if we
It's very
have some
Cape appropriate.
responses and from the survey,
Yeah.
dripping some of that out.
I'm gonna intentionally dangle some of the pop-up stuff at September Board of Selectmen
Yeah,
meeting.
And
yeah.
if we can have like a big animal picture kind of a plan to say, hey, that might be the meeting that we're heading toward mid to late fourth quarter. Between now and then, we're gonna be doing active listening. We got these cards. We're pushing them around. You might hear about them from 3 or 4 people in the community. You might be invited to a workshop based on some club or some activity you're in. So I think we're trying to triangulate
Yes.
to get as many
Yes.
inputs as possible.
Yes.
And if you're not getting invited, call Joyce.
Yeah, or anybody. Yeah,
Something
yeah.
that just
Yeah, yeah.
says, active, and if you're not, you don't feel like you're being heard, call us, you know.
Is there any way, I mean, we all get emails from the town for different things as far as, community centers closed this
Yeah, right.
morning. We've got
The
red
water
pipe,
fountains.
pipe and clovers at Red River, et cetera. Is there a way that we can put this QR code on these things through Harwich and then have it sent out to, they're gonna.
Leverage the SMS.
Yeah, they're gonna get a whole lot more hits probably.
Yes, and so we talked a bit about
Right.
that with Joe. I would, I'm open to feedback about this, but I would say that formal through the tech will be for the final, the survey,
Okay,
as opposed to these pop-up
versus,
cards.
okay.
Yeah,
Is
Makes
every,
sense.
okay. Because you want that kind of to be a singular,
Can I push back on that?
please.
Why couldn't we be a little bit more active? And we're out there, we're listening, and maybe there's a monthly update or a quarterly update. Why can't we be a little bit different, rather than wait until a survey?
well,
his thoughts.
part of the reason is that it's essentially part of their emergency
It's
response.
Very formal. Yeah.
They're very hesitant on
Yeah,
using
yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think you only kind of get one shot via
Yeah,
the
yeah.
town. Want to be as
Because
tight as
They don't
possible.
want to have
Yes.
so much stuff
Yes,
going out that
yes,
people stop.
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Correct.
another one of them crap
Correct,
things.
correct. But you can, you go to the Mariners game. I think
Yeah.
this is a little more human connection, and we can be as out there as we want, but my sense is that that you kind of get one shot via the official town.
Could you use that listserv to maybe use that formal thing to say you can opt in or opt out to another program that would actually push events and information around the local planning committee?
Good.
Because then you give them the option to say, you click yes, we're gonna send you more information, and you just sub that through a
Did we
different.
see another town, whether it was Barnstable, somebody had an opt-in to their.
I feel like they did.
LCD.
One of my friends runs a company that does that stuff, and he's like, yeah, you just give them an opt-in, opt-out, you cover all your legalities around it, and they opt in, they get 30% off of whatever, but he does it for retail, but.
Well, the town provides that option right now for other boards, like you
Just
can,
add this
you
to the
can
list.
sign up to get the selectmen's agenda or
It's
the
true.
planning board
Ah.
agenda.
Could I assign you vice chair?
Sure.
That is a task, because it's a great idea.
Opt-in
So,
policy.
because they do have that, where you can opt in to get messages from the LPC, and an IT contact here in the town.
Yep.
Thank you,
I'll figure out who that is.
thank you.
Behind the screen.
Maybe we can,
Pay no attention to the man behind the screen.
Just say,
yeah,
just got
one of the things that we can ask them to do is ask them to share, when they're opting in, ask them to share this
Yeah.
with people.
Cool,
Yeah.
love it. All right, so I think that gets D. So we have a general date, we have sometime in November, community center, Saturday morning, and as interactive as possible, probably with a little bit of a thesis and some kind of options, maybe A, B, C, and D that we're asking to get some feedback on. Any more thoughts on that formal outreach event?
You bring this up.
Board, oh, we have to talk about the Cranberry Harvest Festival. That was
Well,
important.
before we get there, though, I just
Okay.
sort of,
Please.
question on kind of the constituencies that we signed up to cover.
Mm.
I still think we probably need to formalize who we're gonna go or what meetings, just to make sure we're covering things, because these months are gonna start flying by.
Yeah.
You know, should I go see Cindy Williams and see if I can get on the agenda for one of these?
Could you,
I think
this fits into the agenda, I can share that right now with us, with,
I think we just need to know
Sure.
that we've got coverage. for
So,
different-
okay.
I agree with you.
on the fly,
Lose track of that.
on the fly here, for the record, let me just pull up the drive, and we'll blow through that. Let me look, SME spreadsheet right here. And why doesn't everyone all go through this, and we can just shout out, like, maybe, we'll go through and you can kind of think out loud how you might hit that in the coming months, both with the pop-up card, with the formal survey. We'll leave the big guns here, so the high priority is planning board, board of selectmen, water, housing, land use, conservation. That's all happening.
You're not showing it, if you're thinking.
Oh,
yeah.
hold on. Share this tab instead. Here it is.
You just deleted something.
I did.
Yeah, just hit undo.
Control Z. Okay, thank you. Can we turn on, do you mind turning off the lights? Thank you so much, we appreciate it. So I think high priority that we're getting, planning board, board of selectmen, water, housing, land use, conservation, that's already happening.
So, I need to push
Can you
back on
make that a little
that.
bigger?
Okay. How do I let's see. I can make it bigger on the, here. There you go.
There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Crushed it.
Nice.
These are hugely important. I'm not gonna include Board of Selectmen, because that's a different beast, but Planning Board should be tied in soon. Housing, land use, conservation, those are all biggies. How are we interacting with any of those?
So, planning board, I can say, we are sharing visioning data. I'm open here for, if you want to put other ways that we should be doing it.
But aren't we really doing the same thing here, with starting with the highest level, you know, like these cards and, not that we're handing out cards, but.
One of my themes I've probably voiced once or twice is there are some groups in town who have already done a lot of work on the topics that we're addressing, and we should really get their input.
Hit them first.
So water, remember, we did have our water commissioner visit us. We can,
Water superintendent.
yes, excuse me, we can, speak, we can put, if you have other ideas, we can put it here.
Well, wastewater.
The issues about
We had
both,
conservation come
You
into.
did water wastewater is one, I assume,
Yes,
Yeah.
it's one,
should be,
He's both.
one group now.
Oh, and his-
Dan. on that.
So I think to part of how the housing, land use, conservation, we are doing this visioning process. We have sent delegates continuously to these meetings to listen. Like Margot's work just in the last 2 weeks is a good example. So we can put, sending reps to all sending reps to community meetings. We have clarified role of trust and housing production plan, I mean, clear, I'm not minimizing this, this is just work to be done. I mean, these are high priorities.
I would think, you know, it would be good to get on each has to be a short bit on each of the committee's agenda
Sure.
and have a couple of us go to each one
To
and
do.
just do
Get on all agendas.
a
Yeah.
pitch, the elevator speech and, you know.
And we can start with the same questions as on
Yeah.
our cards.
Yep.
Yeah, you know.
And then the survey is going to be coming, elevator pitch. Okay.
So make sure we get these to the planning board, board
Yep.
of selectmen.
And, you know, and that'll take, you know,
Yes.
having specific people signed up to do the
And
different
visioning may
committees.
be- There may be separate visioning workshops with those groups too.
Yeah.
Okay.
This work gets harder.
Okay. Does anyone, go ahead,
I think
go
you're
ahead,
right.
Jim.
I think it's on here, but just sort of, you know, a discussion of needs of older adults, needs of kids, and how that's gonna change over the next 5 or 10 years.
Yes, this is, these are the stakeholders.
Okay.
Not, I don't mean this in a scolding way at all. I mean this in a just reminding, we're all working on this together. I have asked you guys to think about how you might interact with these groups. So if you haven't had a complete thought yet, you don't have to, but, and thank you, Brian, you're reminding us that these are a priority, but if you have had thoughts, we can put it here. Yes, Barbara?
So why don't you make an assignment, need an assignment that in the next couple of weeks, we send you an email as to the groups, because we all have it's on the Google Drive, it's on the minutes, et cetera, that we send you an email
Correct.
as to how we're going to
Correct.
approach the groups that we're responsible
You can send me an email. You can also, if you would like to modify this form, whatever resonates for you tech-wise is
Well, I'm
great.
just saying is that.
Yep, I hear you.
Instead of going through it,
Sure, that's fine. I agree. Bernadette, were you going to say something?
Just tomorrow night I'll be covering library to start with. And then
Nice,
I'll
thank you.
Probably, find out about a meeting of the Friends of the Library
Yep,
and do that too. Because
So I'm gonna
we
just-
have a place
just-
on the end of our agenda for any input.
discussing
from
at committee
trustees.
meetings. I'm going to just put it.
I've got Cultural Council coming up again in mid-September. I've got a
What dates is it? You going tomorrow to the library?
Yeah, we have a board
Nice,
meeting
he's
tomorrow
putting it
night.
down there, We're making a
Got it.
trail.
So I can start with that tomorrow night with them, because we have a place at the end of the agenda for
Yep.
trustees to
Great.
talk about anything they want to bring up. And the Cultural Council will be reconvening September 14th, so I'll make sure I have that on our agenda. As far as library, I can also at some point go to a Friends of the Library and get the word out that way. And then arts, we've got a tenant meeting in the 204, separate from Cultural Council stuff. We've got a 204 tenant meeting coming up at the end of this month. And every Monday night, we've got concerts at Brooks Park, so I can hand out more of these or, share that, get that out to some people that way as far as my arts, library, culture part.
And to build in some redundancy at our next meeting, I will have a specific agenda item where we just check in with all of us about like, hey, what have you done around this in the last month? Just to keep us all on this. There you go.
And every Thursday night at the Cultural Center, there's a concert.
Did you say the concert was at the Cultural Center or Brooks Park?
Both.
Oh,
There,
Monday is Brooks
Monday
Park.
night, for 10 years, it was the TD Bank that
Yep.
sponsored it, and they
Yep.
stepped away last year. So the newly created Harwich Center Cultural District is now under the Department of Cultural Affairs. They're sponsoring it up in Brooks Park.
Great.
So great one last night,
And then on Tuesday night is the band,
band concert.
and Wednesday night is obviously Music in the Stroll, and Thursday night is the
Concerts in the
Courtyard
Courtyard.
concert series at the 204.
And if you forget what your subject matter area is, you can see it here, and it's in the homepage of the drive. It says SME spreadsheet. So let me see if I can make it look like there. Share this tab instead. Let me show you. If you go to Harwich, the drive for Harwich. It actually, so you're seeing that, it's actually under unique to Harwich on the SME spreadsheet. That's where it's hiding. And you can't mess this up. You guys can poke around here. Don't be afraid of this. I know it's, I wish there was, it's as user-friendly and as accessible as we're gonna get, I think, without the town buying us something fancier, so. I apologize if anyone's having trouble with it, hit up either Garrett or I, and we will help you. We will, as much as we can.
And because of another group I'm a part of, where the group is trying to pull together sort of an interesting collection of people that have some concerns about activities for youth in town, or the lack thereof.
Yep,
And-
which is different than it was. There has been a change in town priorities there, yeah.
And it's sort of, oddly enough, it's being pulled together
Imagination.
about putting together some activities during the Cranberry Festival for kids to be, because they only last so long, being dragged along by their parents, booth to booth. But we're trying to, I'm trying to, it's the Lower Cape Kiwanis Club that's spearheading this to pull together and see. On the short range, that's the goal, but on the long range is developing some momentum to help support additional youth activities in town.
Could we dovetail to that, and then we'll be finished with this agenda item? How do we get a booth at the Cranberry Festival?
You can go online and put an application. I'll give you the link.
Okay.
Or you can call this person, right?
Yeah.
Kathy Kirch.
Kathy Kirch is she's in charge of taking applications for people who want booths.
Is there someone on the committee who feels motivated to take that as a task?
If we get a booth for our group,
Yeah,
I'll take it. I mean, I'm trying to get a booth for the Harwich Fund.
thank you, Brian. I really, really, really appreciate
Sure.
it. That's excellent, thank
need
you.
one
I mean, we
booth
don't
for
need
both.
anything fancy, we just need a.
What's that?
Dual booth?
Yeah.
On the one hand, on the other hand.
But
That would be
it's
awesome.
also,
Thank you.
if you do a
They're
booth,
compatible.
Front back.
to sort of get some, you need some visuals to get some
Yeah, that's what I was
attention.
gonna say.
Yeah, when is that? It's in October, isn't it?
When is it? Ed?
No, it's early September.
It's the 16th and 17th, or 17th and 18th.
You can put me in a dunk tank.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
For visual.
That's why I said get a dunk tank,
Yeah.
just borrow the one.
Could give out cotton candy or
Yeah.
something. We're gonna do something.
Yeah,
And we
think of
can,
something.
maybe get you arranged so you're next to the Cranberry Festival's, the Cranfest beer tent, so it'd be enjoyable.
Get them on their way in, not on
Yeah.
their way out.
Yeah.
You'll get totally different data.
So-
We're gonna recheck you.
Okay,
so-
excellent. Thank you for taking that on. Appreciate it.
Can I ask one question
Yes.
just to support my line item? I don't know of any organizing body for the nonprofits in town. I mean, I know some of the large nonprofits by name and by who they are. But does anybody know of anything that they do that they work together?
Like as a group,
As a group?
community?
Affiliation of them all?
No, I don't either. Okay,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if anybody knew
But
anything.
not on,
Oh, a couple.
not on a town basis.
Yeah.
It's like the Council of
There's that
Churches,
phil-
right?
Philanthropic Network, and they do an annual meeting, but that's sort of Cape-wide.
Yeah, I know the
But, yeah,
foundation does some
yeah.
things for them, but,
Yeah, the
but
Cape Cod,
nothing.
the Cape Cod Foundation
Yeah.
works with a
They do
lot of,
Philanthropy Day,
yeah,
and
they
Yeah,
they
well,
work with a lot
that's how I would
of
get their
smaller
votes.
nonprofits, but
Yeah.
I don't know how many of the Harwich ones participate in that.
And there are a lot of Harwich ones.
Yeah.
There are a lot.
There are more nonprofits in
There's
our
Yeah,
this-
so I'm
county
just
than
gonna do
any.
one-offs with.
There's
the-
this website I just found, it's called harwichcc.chambermaster.com, and it's got the list of all the nonprofits that are in Harwich.
Yeah, there's about 75. I mean, I got a list from the Cape Cod Foundation.
Okay,
It's amazing.
okay.
Well, actually, you can send me that link.
Sure.
Mine's 3 years old, but, all right, thank you.
Thank you. We're doing things.
I'll volunteer to look in to see if
Have to
there
really
is
speak up.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
Just one other suggestion, I think it was mentioned religious organizations,
Yeah.
churches, that's a really good way.
That
to
is,
get-
that is
get
our
to sort of-
SME. We have, you know, who's religious.
Retail
I'll even say
populations
it.
as
Who,
well.
it was humorous. We made, I forget who we made the churches. The clergy, oh, Brian, you were clergy in
Well, yeah,
nonprofit.
Because I'm on the finance council of the church.
Right.
And that was my way in there.
Nice.
He just left. So, but I do, I think there's an ecumenical group that
Yes.
that does
Yes.
get together, so I'll work my way.
We do have them identified as a
Great.
stakeholder. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I don't know them,
I
but
used
I'll
to,
work my way.
used to know most of the ministers in town, but they've all moved on.
Reverend Newberry
Yeah.
would probably be the way in.
He's long,
Long gone.
he's, yeah, we're like four, I think, and I'm not even part of that church, but I think he's like, I think we're at our third minister since Reverend Newbury, but he might still have.
Is Terry still in town?
I don't know.
I haven't
saw
seen
someone
him
that
around
looked like
recently.
across a room a while ago, but I wasn't even sure.
Okay, I'm moving us on to the last part of the agenda, which is very, very, very meaty, and to get us through some survey questions for Sharon. I had shared with you what I had sent to her, and David had provided some really lovely feedback. Thank you as well. And you can always do that, but just to kind of give us a starting block, and then Sharon, you can jump in. I had said, I think we all want to do some rank order of what are the most important issues facing the town, and I had given her some of those, and I'll say them out loud in case we're missing anything. So this is just to give you what is the top 5 or what is the top 3. Housing, open space, water quality, growth concerns, economic opportunity for residents, infrastructure, roads, sewers. That would be one category. Educational and recreational opportunities for youth, health and recreational opportunities for older residents, culture, that would be including history, arts, heritage, diversity, and climate change. I had a specific question for the committee to better articulate this. When we say open space, what are we asking?
I think we're talking about a number of things under that broader topic. It might be clearer to the world if we said open space protection or open space preservation, but it includes, environmental things like
Yeah.
like habitat and
Yes,
water
yes,
quality protection.
Yes.
But it also includes trails and recreational opportunities.
Yes, so I wanted to thank you for this leading us to the path of, I think we
Yeah.
need to, we can't just say open space, and we have to kind of better articulate that because it's related to a lot of what we're talking about: housing, open space, water quality, climate change, economic opportunity. And, if we look at just those 19 responses, we've gotten many, many, many people have responded. What really is important to them in Harwich is like woods, trees, things like that. So a little bit of deliberation here, I think, is worthwhile to better articulate this category of open space when we're asking, hey, is this a top 3 or top 5 issue? Wanted to open it up to the committee to what do you want to say about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick definition.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
It's land that is not intensively developed for residential, commercial, industrial, or institutional use. It serves many purposes, whether it is publicly or privately owned, including agriculture, forest land, shorelines, undeveloped scenic lands, public parks, and preserves.
So I also wondered if given what's going on, and should we ask it very specifically, if this is a top 5 issue, should we say zoning changes to create more open space in town? I have no bias in this. I'm really just want to better articulate it.
When I hear about it, you talk about it, it's a blend of what Harwich Conservation does, preserving land to be used or not get hurt, and then places where you can do things, usually kids, like open space is a big argument when you want to build more basketball courts or
Pickleball.
pickleball courts, you got it. That's all those things. I'm surprised that comes up as a top 5.
Well, it's related to, we're also doing the open space and recreation plan, so we have to ask about it correctly.
I-
Yes,
I
yes.
was gonna say that, you know, the required scope of that plan kind of gives you the umbrella of what's included under that topic to explain it to people. So it seems like that would be the place to start with your description of what do we mean by open space?
This is not it's not gonna be an elaborate phrase, but we just have to have some sort of, like, if we're triangulating, to use Brian's words, of what are our issues in town, we have to define that issue. And I don't know, Sharon, you know, as it relates to the plan, is there a better way of, you know, I don't think we can just, my point is, I don't think we can just say open space.
Because it
and
means so many different things. so many
Correct.
different
We
people.
gotta know what we're
Well,
asking
Sometimes
here.
it's very narrow, like people hear culture and they're still
Mhm.
only thinking arts, and
Right.
it's more than that.
Correct,
Yes.
Open
correct,
space is more than just conservation, although
Right.
it includes that.
right.
So, yeah.
Well, it's hard to give you a simple answer because the open space and rec plan has one set of purposes and goals, and it does include recreation. And then open space under sort of either the regional plan or the local plan is really more of what Margot referred to as like natural or, you know, protected open space. That's more of the focus of it. It doesn't mean it shouldn't cover recreation as well. And many of the plans do and should, you know, just so that's why the open space plan can get incorporated into the LCP. But the open space plan does have dual purposes, so. I mean, I'm looking again at David's email about separating out the open space survey for that reason, that, you know, it's not that there are specific requirements, you know, of what the survey must include, but the topics that need to get covered are pretty specific, as Margot also said. So you could have some high-level questions in the initial survey, perhaps, you know, talking about open space, and yes, it probably should be defined.
I mean,
what you
I
mean
would
by
just
that.
like to have a better, like, and we can, better 4 or 5 word phrase to articulate what we're talking about here.
Open space, both protected and recreational. As long as we all
So,
understand.
Okay,
Definition
open
of that.
space, so could we say conservation land and recreational opportunities?
Protected is a good umbrella. If I hear protected open space, I think of conservation, I think
Okay,
of
so open space, parentheses, protected
Protected.
land and
Protected
recreational
land.
opportunities? Okay, okay. Is there any more discussion about that?
There's like, under open
Well-
space, there's 2 categories.
One of my questions always is, where do cemeteries fit?
Protected,
Protected open space?
Sure.
And certain of them are like, especially Island Pond with its designation of being an arboretum, is also heavily involved in habitat restoration and preservation, so.
cemeteries would, I think, always fall under,
I guess, and you know, our bias or our thesis or our thought of like in creating these categories, and we're gonna have a scatter category, you know, what are the top, this is open discussion, what are the top 3, what are the top 5? That's, to help us guide our plan. So,
Well, I think that description that you just came up with is fairly short number of words
perfect,
Yeah.
and reasonably inclusive.
okay.
and I'm never able to be that short with my words, so thank you.
You got that, Sharon, then, what we just accomplished there?
Sort of. I don't think
Okay.
I got the exact 5 words, but.
So, open space,
Both protected and recreational.
open
Okay,
space,
yeah.
parentheses, protected land, and rec opportunities,
Sure.
close parentheses.
I mean, I think, just based on, and I realize this is only one group, but just based on the discussion that we heard from the Alzheimer's group online.
Yes,
A big part of what's upsetting that group
yes,
is that they're seeing land subdivided and developed
yes,
for
yes.
more trophy homes, basically.
Yeah.
And there are really no mechanisms in town to control that.
Correct, no,
And so we want to make sure it should capture the notion of land conservation as part of, as a land use tool, basically. It's,
And this is, and that is, it is supported by, again, but our limited responses of what do I value about Harwich, woods, open space, trees, there's many ways of putting this, which is actually, then maybe to further the point, is there a sense amongst the committee that you want to put, like, top 5 issue, do you want to put zoning changes to protect land, or do you just leave
we're
that
doing-
category broad?
If we're doing visioning, I'd love to stay away from zoning until a
yeah,
later
yeah.
date.
I think
Okay.
zoning's much further down the
Okay,
road.
okay.
And it's only one way of
Yeah,
protecting.
so do you feel comfortable then, saying exactly what you so articulately put, that open space, parentheses, protected land and recreational opportunities is capturing, for example, that East Harwich group, those concerns?
For the most part, the one thing that's not really called out there, although it's implied, is wildlife habitat protection, natural resource
So,
protection.
and we're getting housing, open space, this open thing, water quality, growth concerns, so that's another way of asking the same thing.
Right.
We also, had climate change, it's also, I mean, that's not exactly, but it's also getting at
Yeah.
another thought.
Yeah. Do we need to prioritize them? We need to, I think we need to make sure we include everything that we think are
Yeah.
big issues, but what, isn't part of the visioning process to hear from the community what they think the priorities are?
From everyone.
Well, that's, I think what we're asking, and we're,
But in the end,
the initial thought, and now we're really digging into this survey, Sharon, so this is of how we want to structure the survey, is, so, okay, you wouldn't,
List them alphabetically. I mean, I don't think we should sort them.
right, but the way the scatter question is initially asked, we could ask it differently, is like, what are the top 3 or what are the top 5 issues affecting the town? And then we're posing the issues. It could be asked in a different way, that,
Well, if we're saying what are the top 3 or 5, and then we're giving them a list of things to check, so you just give them a list.
We'll give them a list and maybe let them rank them.
Yeah.
that's what we're asking, that's what we're
the
asking,
point.
That's it,
that's what
yeah.
we're asking.
Put them alphabetical order and
Yes,
let them
yeah,
rank.
yeah, that's what we're asking,
Yeah.
that's what we're
I want
asking.
it to be as unbiased and neutral.
That is what we're asking. When we finalize the survey, I guess there'll be some deeper questions about, like, we'll be able to ferret out, like, open space, water quality, climate change. Those questions, like, ecological, could be, there are some deep dive questions around those.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
yes,
climate change,
yes.
is it just climate change, or is it climate change / sea level rise?
Sure, love it. I think that would be wise,
Because-
actually, because that's a big deal, yeah. Sea level, I like that. That's a good,
Climate was just changing.
yeah.
What are you gonna do?
No, and that's
It's
a
just getting
huge
hotter or
thing.
colder, but the manifestation of that is, it's impacting
Yeah, that's a
the
huge thing.
shoreline and
In
the,
terms of insurance policies and, yes, living in Harwich and things like that.
Florida more than anything.
Any big topics, these topics were pulled out of our stakeholders. So is there, I don't think we're missing anything
Do we
big,
have
but,
anything around, I guess we do, it's the Council of Aging. Just from issues facing most of the Cape, you got mainly like housing affordability, like the tourism stuff, right? Tourism dependency, ebbs and flows in workforce
so
because of that.
economic opportunity for residents, I was trying to say, health and rec opportunities for older residents. That was my shout out to
Yeah,
Jim's,
that's good.
Jim's
Perfect.
demographic.
It's more than health and
What
rec.
would you like to call it
It's sort
then?
of, it's services and
It's housing, it's healthcare provisions, it's community services.
Like,
yeah.
we really need to get services for Alzheimer's in this town.
services for seniors or healthcare.
So you want to say services or aging on Cape Cod? How would you like to put health and recreational opportunities for older residents? What would you like to?
Should be in there, that's part of it.
But what would you like to, would you like to
Would you
make
s-
it
I think
snappier?
that says it, though.
Would you just say services for older residents, or would you say more such as services and activities
I
for
don't know,
older?
if you're gonna say
Never
health
mind.
and
Recreation.
recreation, that's a broad set too, so I think services would be fine.
Well, it says, the way it's listed now is health and recreational opportunities for older residents.
I was thinking of that most broadly, to include your Alzheimer's things and that, but if that's not capturing it, we can change that wording.
I mean, we should go back and look at the, at the purpose of, you know, the ambitious mission of the Coalition on Aging, and that sort of
You could say
gets at it.
health, recreation, and service opportunities for older residents.
Yeah, I would add services.
Services. Could we turn the lights on
Yeah,
too?
How-
Thank you
Yeah, no,
very much. Whoa, yes.
housing is an issue also.
Why is that committee sitting that's better?
What you're trying to say. Okay, so we can add services.
The last thing I was gonna say is, housing is an issue, but I think it just gets.
Yeah, yeah.
It's part of the whole housing situation.
Yes, and I want it in our remaining time, because we're doing a lot. So, okay, we're working on this, we accomplished something there, that's great. Sharon, if you didn't get it, I got some of it too. Demographics should be later in the survey, it should probably be the last thing, because we've talked about this as a committee, there's, people will drop out of the survey, but we'll still capture whatever questions they do answer. David, I think it was a great point of, in what town do you work, or what town do you live, and what are your reasons for living there?
Yeah, you might have to wordsmith it a little bit.
Yeah, but that's, was a
This
really
format.
good point. I'm gonna jump back, go ahead.
On the demographics?
Yes.
Is there a way to put in some sort of question that responds to people who work here but don't live here?
Yes, so that was, in what town do you work, in what town do you live here, in what town do you live, and what are your reasons for living there?
Yeah, you might have to make that a little clearer, but
Yeah.
something
So we'll
along those
be able
lines.
to, for example, the survey tool, what you're asking, we'll be able to take the people who do not live in Harwich and separate out their answers and look at them differently.
Okay.
So, I don't know where this fits in, but I was reading something about the, you know, like the break point where, you know, it's just sort of all, like when Home Depot moves in and when Target moves in and stuff like that. And it's all about density in terms of, so the question, if I talk to any of my neighbors, they say that would be a disaster. But, so the issue of, you know, how do you guide and make sure we don't get to that point where we're gonna have Home Depots and everything everywhere.
Good thing we have the Cape Cod Commission.
Are they helping on that?
Oh, yeah. We won't step too much in it. All right, keep moving along. So we have the demographics. I want to spend the most time on the housing questions, and then other thoughts about that. Maybe Sharon has some stuff to take us through about the questions too. But I did think that it would be a high-yield question fairly early on in the survey to ask for, describe your ideal Harwich in 10 years. That could be tweaked, but
In the vein of housing?
no,
Oh, just overall.
just in,
Yeah, but
because like,
That's next.
yes, we're gonna come back to housing, sorry. But just, maybe that would be, in the survey
think that's
design, I don't know if that would be your first question, but seeing what was coming back in these pop-up questions.
I think you put something like that towards the end, and the
Okay.
reason I think that is, as they ideate and go through that list, things are gonna pop up and prioritize in their brains, is like,
Perfect.
this is a theme I really wanna hit home.
Yes,
Yep.
yep,
And then
good
they'll
point,
get context,
good point, good point.
train the brain.
Like it, I like it.
Just frame it.
So maybe that's your last question.
Yeah.
Describe your ideal Harwich in 10 years. Because in being in the weeds about like these questions and stuff like that, I think the bigger picture is lost a little bit of like, what are we trying to accomplish here, you know?
I mean, for some of these detailed housing
Yes. We're
Is there opportunity for deeper surveys
Yeah,
later on?
I want to talk to
I'm
that.
concerned.
All right,
that this
so
is-
now we're on the housing question.
But as long as we've got your last question in somewhere, that's good.
Yes. Here are the housing
So,
questions.
when I responded before the meeting to your
Yes.
request for input,
Yes.
I said, things like the open space plan are much more detailed and should come later if we're doing vision.
Yes.
What I said at the time about housing was, yeah, that's a little different, because housing is
Yes.
such a big ticket item.
And
We should include
yes.
something,
Yes.
I think maybe this is a bit too much. So I think these are 5 very good questions. I've been trying to rank them in my own mind, let me just finish. And I think number 3 is important, what type of housing units. I think number 7 is very important, if, which groups that hits the income thing that we're all talking about. So I think those are the most 2 important at this high-level stage. And if I was gonna do a third one, I'd probably do number 5. So even though I think all of these 5 questions are very important, I think it's a little too much for a vision level questionnaire.
Okay. I just given the dialogue in town, given the different, exactly what Margot so articulated, sort of some competing energies around planning and meaningful change in housing, a duality there, which, deliberative democracy. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think 5 questions on housing, given it's probably number 1 right up there issue, is too bad. I mean,
I don't
yeah.
know I don't know how many total. I sort of agree with David.
okay.
It's-
So we like, on what type of housing unit should the town focus?
Yeah,
So, okay, to your point that we've discussed that zoning is maybe too specific.
I think that's a little later.
But what I thought was interesting about this is they're asking about the ADUs. They're asking about what is being discussed in the community,
Yeah,
promote top-of-shop
By the way,
housing.
I'm not questioning
No,
the
yeah.
validity of the question, it's
Yeah.
the timing of when we ask it, right? We're asking big, high-level issues, we're trying to get the big rocks, right? Big issues, like we're saying, what are your major issues? And now we're diving deep into type of house. I don't think they mix together in the same.
I get you. I would, without asking that I worry that we're just not coming up with anything new.
Well, then, should we have a balance of, if we're talking about the top 3 to 5 issues, should we have 3 relatively detailed questions on each of those 5 issues? Should there be balance?
But some of them might not be as complex.
Right, I think housing is probably the most complex. It's the most in the current thinking now, so that part I agree with you on. I just think this has gone a little bit too
Okay.
far at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
You think people would just be like, I'm not answering this, or there just won't be enough
I just think
education
like
around it?
five questions is, but. yeah.
5 questions is okay, but these are 5 very detailed questions. It's really getting down into the weeds.
A lot
I
of
think
bullet
too
items
far.
on every question, yeah. It's like
And,
people
you
aren't
know,
even gonna read it.
I go through this, and especially on item 5, what do you think should be the town's priority housing-related programs, services, and policies? And there's several areas that I think are being missed.
Ooh, tell us what is missing.
Well,
Let's make a little.
one of the things the Housing Trust should be doing is using its ability. One of the problems in Harwich in developing at scale housing is the fragmented tenure land ownership that we have, and town Housing Trust ought to be using its eminent domain capabilities to buy up and consolidate properties so something can be developed in a reasonably economical way, especially around the villages.
You're like talking about finding strategic areas
Yeah.
where you can develop housing and joint,
You
yeah.
know.
that's not counter to these questions, it's in addition to.
Yeah, but it's actually, it's a major policy
Maybe more important than this.
advancement. you know?
David,
Yeah,
David, if, and to Bernadette's point, if there were fewer options here for each question,
My general response is, this is too much. Whether it's 5 questions or all those sub-items, I'm not sure which. I'd love to see you focus on housing, cut the total of what we see here in half. And go
for
with,
options.
no, just overall information.
Yep.
Whether it's 3 questions, 4 questions, or 5 questions.
Doesn't matter the questions, just
Cut
how
the-
much density is what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe 3 very dense questions, maybe 5 less dense questions.
Okay.
I would just try to pare it down a little in terms of
Okay.
envisioning.
Okay, okay. I think there is some stuff that maybe is not, is like, we don't necessarily, like, you know, multifamily condominium buildings versus multifamily rental apartment buildings is probably.
That's one
Yeah, yeah,
example.
yeah. I mean, that's an easy, that could maybe get there.
well, yeah,
That's just an example of, sure, we could slim this down.
I think we're running the risk of, hey, you're coming out with a survey to identify the major areas of concern, but you really are asking me about housing.
No, I mean, this wouldn't be the only thing.
Well,
We're just doing a deep dive on housing questions. This is not, so this was not intended to be the survey in its,
So what's
In its entirety.
what's the sequence? We take a shot at the survey, and then we look at it, how will we proceed?
Sharon, guide
Yeah, I
us.
think I'm getting your input tonight, so that's really helpful. Yes, just kind of keep firing suggestions, I'm taking notes. Then I can share with you before the next meeting, a first cut, I would say. Maybe bring
We
it
have
back.
to actually
Yeah.
kind of, to that point, we have to be, your feedback via email will really move this along. So I try to not overburden you with too many emails, but I know you do get some emails from
So
me.
if halfway towards next meeting, we have a draft to look at, time to respond,
That's
with
what
the
I would
goal of
hope for.
finalizing the survey at our next meeting?
It may take another round. I mean, we're
I was
looking at
being
October,
optimistic.
an October timeframe, so
Yeah.
it's probably gonna take a couple rounds. I mean, these
is this the only
questions
area
are tough
that we're
questions.
diving
No,
into? So we're gonna have 2 or 3 questions on water quality?
correct, correct,
Okay, that I
correct,
understand.
correct. I'm sorry I was not clear.
That's why I
This
wanna
was,
see a
this
draft.
was just an example
See if
of,
it pans out or not.
this was an example of the housing questions.
Thank you, I thought it
Yes.
was the only one.
I am not sorry, I am sorry to not be clear on that, that you would, of course you would object,
I
yes.
withdraw my concern.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I have no
Yes,
further
these-
concerns.
These were the housing questions specifically, and yes, and I think there was a lot of good feedback there about David, but obviously that's not the only thing we're gonna ask about, but now it's more obvious, and David is,
I like
Dave-
these questions.
David's point, yes, and David's point about maybe less options that we can streamline,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb there, guys, now, and say this is a unique opportunity to get some potentially really provocative information, data around housing that I am not seeing in this dialogue currently. I think we can maybe really move the needle. And if actually is anyone, at least some data to come back to this discussion with.
Of course, if you give a whole list of options and people respond to those, if you leave it a little more open-ended, then you get a comment such as Ed's as to, well, this is the one.
Yes.
So,
In response.
And those who maybe could cite chapter and verse, when was the last time there was survey questions of this quality in the community on behalf of housing in Harwich?
so I don't know.
Exactly my point. It has, we've all been talking, it's all a big deal, but we don't necessarily have this.
In my involvement in developing some of the affordable housing projects before 2010, the big fight was all over whether or not it was going to be rental ownership housing. And everybody only wanted ownership housing.
back then.
We all know renters are pigs and they degrade the neighborhood. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the response.
Except
And-
in Canada.
Huh?
Except in Canada.
Yeah, but, you know, I think at this point, if we're going to impact housing availability, it needs to be production of substantial amount of rental housing.
I wouldn't even be as specific, I just wanna like ask, I wanna just like try and collect some data from the community about
It's happening all
this.
over the country, right?
Because it's,
Hedge funds are buying property and then turning it into rental property.
if the plan, if we know housing is an issue at some duality of tension around what we've just talked about of ecologic
Is there a number out there?
importance, then, and I'm glad you confirmed for me that no one has asked these questions recently. We
Yeah.
got to ask them correctly and as precisely as possible without
Is
boring
there-
people.
Is there any data on just how many buildable lots there are left in
Yes.
Harwich?
Yes.
So that's a well-known number.
Well, it's part of the wastewater plan, it's what the remaining thing is. It's sort of a little difficult in Harwich because of owners unknown land and how much that adds to the list that nobody's accounted for, but there is a list.
Dan talked about that on our.
Yes. Yes. So, housing questions, Sharon, we can work on them more. Are there other, this is the last item on the agenda, are there other question things we can accomplish for you for the survey?
Well, I think you've answered, like, do you want any open-ended questions? Do you want people to freely respond beyond the little postcard pop-up questions? Having a few questions where people can,
Yeah,
I think
so,
they're hard to analyze.
so.
They are.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's why,
Yes.
so this is for discussion, this was kind of my
Right.
creative contribution, shower thought. Like, what is your ideal Harwich in 10 years? I'm not attached to that, does somebody want to do some different version of that? That's open for discussion and deliberation here.
I think having one open-ended question at the end is a good idea, and, yours, I mean, sounds fine to me. But I don't think you want multiple open-ended questions, because, as Brian says, it makes it a nightmare to try to.
And we're gonna we've already asked this in our little pop-up friends.
exactly, that's fine, that's helpful.
And I think might have been David's comment to put the demographics at the end.
Yep.
That was
And I think
I've got that.
I think it's extremely savvy to our point about economic opportunity and sustainability and things like that, asking where are you living, where are you working, and why. I think that's very,
It's tricky to move from the open-ended to the specifics, because we really haven't said what things do we really want to be specific on. But as just one example, Joyce, your housing questions, the one that I really liked was number 7. If the town is able to set a preference for housing, who would you like to see
yes,
have
yes,
a preference?
yes,
Disabled, seniors,
yes,
veterans,
yes.
moderate income, low
Yes.
income? I mean, that's a very specific list, but it makes all sorts of sense.
Correct.
So that's just one example of a very good type of
Right.
detailed question.
Yep.
There may be lots more.
because I think it's our role in the planning part of this is to try to distill a little bit with some data, a lot.
what's missing is municipal employees, like teachers, firefighters.
I think
Yeah, we
that's,
have the.
Year-round workers?
that would fall into moderate income
What
households,
is- I don't know, I
Year-round
would call that.
year-round workers.
year-round workers.
Yep,
Where are you looking?
I'm in that question 7, I think I would have called
We-
it out
we-
specifically, but.
Year-round workers, we can't degenerate into
Year-round
that.
workers.
Year-round
Yeah.
workers. I mean, we could, I don't wanna say we can't degenerate, but.
you're talking about people who work in Harwich, as opposed to seasonal workers that come in. And they don't all live in Harwich, but yeah, year-round workers, teachers, policemen. A lot of them would rather live in town, but they can't anymore, so.
Why can't you call out a municipal worker? Is it a problem?
Why would you, as opposed to any other worker who's a year-round worker in this town?
Just
Oh,
municipal,
What, edit?
But if you work for, if
Not
you're
all the
a secretary
teachers
for
are
a lawyer,
municipals.
or you're
You know,
administrator in
Yeah.
a
if you're
school.
school.
I think
is that
year-round
municipal?
worker is
If you're a
capturing
nurse,
them.
if
I
you're,
believe it does. I think you need to keep it general, and then
I
you
agree.
start parsing other groups, and it becomes slightly,
What you're gonna capture duality there without the correct use of identity politics, I don't know. But year-round workers and also moderate income households, because they have very specifically defined incomes, there are gonna capture both. And to, maybe Ed or Sharon, are those, I stole this from Yarmouth, because you shared that with me. Are those numbers still correct? Those financial, those very low income, and moderate income households, are those still correct? Dollar
Oh, I'm
amount?
not sure, you know, I'm not
Okay.
sure from their survey, you mean?
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
could- you could
That's easy to
update it.
update.
That changes,
we just
yeah.
wanna make sure we're right about that.
You know, looking at this, moderate income households, what, 86,000 is a family of one, a household of one, I imagine?
It
That's
says a
how-
household of four earning between, it includes, these are like the federal definitions.
Between those, okay. You know, because quite honestly, you know, one of our concerns are folks like doctors and policemen and firemen, and they're above that.
I think that's getting our year-round workers part, but the point of this is, these are your big A affordable definitions, right? We're not making those up, those are,
Oh, this goes from
this is from the Yarmouth Housing Survey.
Yeah, Karen would know that.
80% and the 100%, okay.
And theirs was done how long ago, so the actual
Not that long ago.
amounts are probably
Yeah.
up from there.
Yes.
And
still.
from the conference I was at yesterday, the One Cape Conference, those numbers are like just
Yes.
skyrocketing.
We
like
will,
year
we
to
will
year,
fix
it's
them, but,
staggering.
yes,
Yeah.
but I think that's
We'll
a,
make sure it says
that's a
Harwich residents,
real
yeah.
way to like move the dialogue about what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's, yeah, so. A lot of the sort of the critical residents that were not, that people can't provide housing are in the sort of the next step above.
Correct, this year-round worker sitch, yeah.
No, it's, but, you know.
Would it be helpful to just provide some examples in parentheses of what we mean by those? So, and that might capture some of what Brian was suggesting. For example, teachers, municipal workers, you know, firefighters. Just give people an idea of what is a
Grocery
moderate.
clerk, I mean, see,
Yeah.
I think you're going from the professionals who can't even live here to you know, and then you're forgetting about all the people that work at Star Market, you
Yeah.
know, there.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think. you
Year-round workers is pretty darn good. I mean, year-round,
Shouldn't be parsing it out as
Well, on the
to
one
what
hand-
type of job it is. If they want to continue to, if they would like to live in this community that they work in.
Yeah, I think I'm having a problem with, you're asking for them to pick three.
well, we can change it. This was just an example of them.
And at the top of the list, it's specific classes of people, older people, seasonal people, year-round people, Yarmouth residents. And then below, you have income classes. And those almost seem to be two different questions. You know, the question is, should the town, in its housing programs, put a preference to providing housing for low-income people? Should we provide a preference for moderate-income people?
But to flip
Or-
that, I totally hear
yeah.
what you're saying, or flip side, does it give you an opportunity to kind of have some, by choosing three, you could choose very low income, year-round workers, and disabled, like,
Yeah,
you know, to actually say, hey, there's the town should be working priorities here.
yeah.
Maybe I could ask Karen for some advice on this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Since
yeah,
we
yeah.
have her
I
on
mean, I
board.
took this as like
Yeah.
kind of best practice since it got through Yarmouth. I thought it
Yes.
was pretty
Mhm.
good questions, but
And I think
yeah.
she helped develop those questions, so
Yeah,
she
yeah, yeah,
might
yeah,
have
yeah.
some
That
suggestions.
would be great.
Okay.
That'd be great.
If we had the demographics, would the income actually be a section, and it wouldn't actually have to crowd into something?
Oh, no, but this is not, this could be me saying, I think the town should, or somebody.
Oh, that's true.
It's not,
Yeah.
you're not providing it
That's
on
right.
your, it's not your, you could be of a totally different
right. It's a
demographic and,
perception
yeah,
question.
yeah. What do you think is the priority? It has nothing to do with your own demographic. Okay. Any other question stuff, Sharon, before we wrap it up?
And
Please,
I'll have a-
guide
I have
us
a
in the
question
last 7
for you
minutes.
all.
Yes.
Should there be any questions on like municipal services generally, like other kinds of things, like solid waste or transportation or, town hall? I mean, some surveys have included questions about, I think someone mentioned town government, municipal services, so just wondering if you.
Parking.
Parking,
And
I mean-
transportation, those are two that,
okay,
yeah.
so those are some key issues.
I think you could get an earful about town government, just,
Mhm.
based on the chatter that we've been hearing in recent months. So we need to,
Stay away from
I,
it.
no, I would ask, what is the
Yeah.
high level way of asking that? Like, what's the best practice
Well,
way of asking that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, so there could be some questions about, priorities for spending, that kind of thing. Not necessarily do you like or not like your town government, but it's more, of,
Yeah.
what should be some of the priorities,
You can ask that in two ways. You can ask, do you think the town is doing a good job in providing good roads? And you rate it 1 to 5. Or snow plowing, 1 to 5. Trash.
I mean, and we kind of have the privilege of these pop-up questions, Sharon, which are coming in, so I think that's gonna kind of guide what you're saying. I mean, transportation is always a big deal. I'm not getting that vibe from, it's not like we're gonna have subways installed in Harwich, so that's, it's not a little less.
No, but there was some stuff in there about the bike trails and the
Yeah.
dangerous intersections.
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Right
maybe
on.
building bridges over
Right on,
things.
right on about
There are
that.
people who depend on the RTA, and it's not,
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you could
That's-
also ask, a question is, do you feel the town is doing enough or needs to do more in the provision of,
Yeah.
and give a choice of services, i.e.
Yep.
transportation
Yep,
may be
yep.
one.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it, Ed, and you could
Yeah.
pick 3 or something,
Yeah.
and that would be a way to ask your town government question. Your spending priority question, and it's also like,
Sure.
is this emerging group around like recreation that has just been a change over time in terms
Yeah.
of the focus of the recreation department.
Okay,
Okay.
good idea.
Awesome.
Be a big task to take on people's concerns about our government.
Well,
That's a
yeah.
tough one to get into.
Well, but it also, part of one of the things this plan is supposed to develop is also a capital improvements,
Yeah,
and to the
Yes.
extent that
Yes,
we're lacking in
Yes.
some
that's relevant to
community
that.
service
It
or
is.
another,
yes,
that may
yes.
make
yes.
decisions about that.
Yes, and I'm open to how we ask about the government issue. I'm a little hesitant that may, just how we ask about, it, we don't want to descend into electronic politics dialogue.
town services.
We don't want to turn it
Rather than
Yeah.
town government.
Yes, yeah, or
We all
personalities, changing demographics, yeah,
Sure,
there's, yeah,
I get
yeah.
it. Understood.
Anything else remaining in the last 3 minutes? Anything burning a hole in anybody's?
just a question about upcoming meeting dates?
Yes.
So you said that
So September 5th is our meeting, and we will have our meeting from 5 to 7. We will be in the wee room. I may, depending on when my little rendezvous with the Board of Selectmen is, which I expect to be brief, may have to hand the gavel to Garrett or
Yeah,
anybody else
Or,
for
you
that,
know-
but they will not be exclusionary, I think. They'll
But
be,
quite honestly, if it is brief, I mean, we could all go in.
yeah, well, let's
you
see
know.
what we gotta, we'll
Yeah.
keep
We
accomplishing.
We can all talk at them. They love that.
No, no.
We could do the
That's,
wave.
I had it down as a joint meeting, but it's,
It is not a joint meeting.
okay.
It's one of the regular meetings.
It is a not joint meeting. We are having our regular meeting, they are having their regular meeting. We're gonna have we're gonna be a small little piece on their agenda. And we are gonna have still things we have to accomplish, like our
Small piece,
survey.
Big presence.
Posting our meeting and putting that in our agenda covers us for if we're all sitting in here with them.
Okay.
I think. Does it
Okay.
not?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah.
whole thing now about if
Yep.
we're sitting here, you know, I mean, it shouldn't if the rest of us just sit.
Do you have the rest of the dates, Margot?
What?
Are you good about the rest of the dates?
We would be the first,
We have our September 5th, we are October 3rd,
okay.
we are November 7th, and we are December 5th.
Okay.
These are all the first Tuesdays of the month.
Yeah, we got
And,
thrown off
you know-
this 4th of July was the first
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Given the time, the need to move the survey along, if you get us a draft in 2 weeks and we get it back to you, and so in the September meeting, we can go over the draft. And then if there's changes, potentially, we could just have 2 weeks later, a meeting
I-
to just approve the final.
Agreed. I encourage you to interact with your email if you're able to.
Yeah.
We all so grateful for all of you and all of your service, and everyone's doing a lot of things, but we can accomplish,
Yeah.
yes, without, and also being respectful of the open meeting law as well.
Do our homework.
Yes, do your
Cool.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yep.
We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, any discussion? All right, so it's, I'm saying it out loud for it is a unanimous,
Yeah.
Yeah, who's second?
David, and it's unanimous to
Yes.
close. Thank you.
This is Google